Good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Corman?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Mr. Zwicker?
Here.
Ms. Breyer?
Here.
Mr. Prince?
Here.
Mr. Person?
Here.
Ms. Palmer?
Here.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all present.
Thank you, Bonnie. Moving on to our first item on the agenda, which is a special presentation. I'd like to welcome up Doug Jacobson to introduce our speaker.
Okay. Good evening. The Washington State Department of Transportation will soon be preparing an environmental assessment that will evaluate the environmental and social impacts of tolling the I-90 corridor between I-5 and 405. At the present time, they're soliciting scoping comments that will help identify the subjects to be studied in that environmental assessment document. Colleen Gantz from WashDOT is here this evening to review for you the reasons the state is considering tolling on I-90, share the timeline for the tolling study, and answer any questions you might have. So at this time, I'd like to turn over to Colleen.
Thank you. I'll just pull this up here. I know most of you already, not everyone, but I had the pleasure of working with many of you representing the DOT on the I-405 corridor program. And I'm still working with Craig Stone, only he's now moved on to the toll division, being the director of the toll division for Washington State DOT. And we have been asked by the legislature to look at the possibility of tolling the I-90 bridge from I-5 to I-405. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that and where we are. As Doug mentioned, we're in the scoping process now, and we are looking to the city of Renton to provide comment to us during the scoping period that ends February 22nd. And we'd also like to extend an opportunity for your council to participate in our executive advisory group if you would like to. We've extended invitations to those cities along touching the I-90 corridor, but we have had some requests from other cities to participate, so we want to make that open to you as well. Okay. Oh, good. It's all great. So the state looks at I-90 and SR 520 as the Cross Lake corridor, because as you saw from this weekend with the 520 bridge being closed, really they act as one corridor, and if the 520 bridge were not to be around anymore, we all saw this weekend what I-90 is like. They really act as one unit. We need them each to get across the lake. So that sets the foundation here, the Cross Lake Washington corridor. As you can see, we're very far along in the 520 program funding. In fact, early on, the ceiling for funding the 520 program was at $4.6 billion. And just recently in October, the state was able to do value engineering over the years, and also has had some lower construction bids, such that the total cost for the 520 program has been cut down to $4.13 billion. So we've been able to work the numbers pretty well over the years, but it still leaves us with a gap for the section that you can see that the construction is unfunded on the west side of about $1.4 billion. So that's the hole that we need to fill. And with the legislative work group that was formed a few years back, they did some analysis on this and said, you know, if you get to the point where you've expended all your resources through federal grants and state and federal funding, and you still can't fill that $1.4 billion gap, we need to take a look at tolling I-90 no sooner than 2014. So this is a little overview of what I just explained to you and how it all breaks down. Recently, we received a TIFIA loan, which is a low-interest federal grant of $300 million, which is wonderful. Those are, in high demand right now. It's hard to get one, and the state did receive one for 520. So we've really gone through all the steps to try to fill that, to fund 520, but we're still left with this $1.4 billion gap. So we, of course, that the 520 bridge has been tolled for a year now, and we're actually beating our traffic forecast and also our revenue forecast. We're actually meeting the revenue forecast. But that doesn't mean that we're making so much that we can fill the $1.4 billion gap. We're meeting where we're supposed to be, as you saw on that previous slide of right here, where the tolls are supposed to fill about $1 billion. So we're just about there, on target to reach that. We've got 378,000 active accounts, as you can see. So it's going well, we would say. We did encounter some bumps in the road getting started, much like a startup company would on any topic. But things are going well now. We're processing 3 million transactions a month. This gives you an overview of that. I will mention that transit service has gone up 25% since we started tolling the 520 bridge. Transit service in the region. This gives you a little breakdown of the traffic since we began. Traffic, we have 33% lower vehicles than we had on 520 before we started tolling. And travel times are 5 minutes shorter, although I know many people say it feels like you can go a lot faster than you used to be able to. I know I used to avoid 520 like the plague. I-90 traffic's increased 11%, so people are feeling that. It's only about a 4-minute longer commute, but I know for those who sit in that in the peak hour, it feels longer. 522, we've experienced some diversion to the north, 9% up in that area. Again, it's what we kind of projected would happen when you toll the north end bridge up there, the 520 bridge. You can see we've had increases in I-5 traffic, 2%, not a lot, 2 to 4 minutes slower in both directions. And then finally, our neighbor here, I-405, mostly looking at the traffic increases up in the Bellevue area, 5% increases in traffic, and we're a little slower in the 405 area up by Bellevue. So WashDOT is closely monitoring traffic, and as I just went through, and what Craig likes to tell people, or to highlight for people, I would say, is that a lot of people are moving to I-90 in the non-peak hours. So you can see that there hasn't been a lot of fluctuation in the peak hours, just about 4 minutes, as I was explaining earlier. But in that peak hour, people are filling the non-peak. People are filling the non-peak hours. At least that's what our traffic our traffic monitoring is showing us. Here is another example of how we're monitoring the travel time, and there used to be a lot larger fluctuation on I-90. It was less predictable. We're honing in on that now, but we're still seeing it's taking a little longer to get across the bridge. So, as I was talking to people coming in today, they said, we've been talking about tolling I-90 for a while. It's not a surprise to hear that you're coming to talk about this topic. You can see here in 2006, we had an expert review panel that looked at tolling I-90 as a way to help pay for the 520 bridge. And as I mentioned, the legislative work group recommended it. The Toll Implementation Committee, which was Bob Drewell, Paula Hammond, and Dick Ford, that came around and visited all the communities, they also looked at tolling I-90 as a way to help pay for 520. Many of you may have heard of Carol Hunter's study that's going, that studied I-90 beyond 405. And so the legislature asked us, when we're looking at tolling I-90 to help fund 520, that we also look at potential improvements east of 405, but with the main priority really being that I-5 to 405 segment for tolling. And then down here, you can see March 7th, that's the first meeting of the Executive Advisory Group that will continue this conversation. And again, you're invited to participate in that. This slide really, on the left, gives you the exact wording of the bill where the legislature asked us to look at tolling I-90. So it describes it, managing traffic and providing funding for construction. So a way to balance the traffic between 520 and I-90, and then to help raise that real necessary revenue there of the $1.4 billion. And then to do an environmental review, which we're currently doing, an environmental assessment, and to do significant outreach. That would be what we're doing tonight, meeting with your staff. We will be having a staff briefing as well, and then doing that executive advisory group meeting, and holding the scoping period for the public, and lots of outreach that we'll be doing. And then finally, considering traffic management options that extend as far east as Issaquah. Here you can see a little outline of the tolling environmental assessment. January 22nd to the February 22nd is the public scoping period. We'll be doing that public outreach and education until we complete the environmental assessment at the end of the year, at which time we'll have a public hearing to go over the findings of the environmental assessment. We'll be looking at, it's not your typical environmental assessment where, like on a 405, when you look at things like wetlands and the environmental impacts on water quality, things like that. This is more, we're going to look at environmental justice to a large degree. That's probably our most in-depth study, and that is the fairness issue of any adverse impacts on any particular community, low income, things like that. We'll also be looking at traffic in depth and the economic and social impacts of this work. This slide gives you an overview of the studies and the current tolling in the state. Many of you are familiar with the Tacoma Narrows Bridge that's currently being tolled. The 167 hot lanes, we do have a bill into the legislature requesting for that to be a permanent facility and to take the pilot status off that. We're seeing now that the 167 hot lanes are covering their costs. They're not a huge moneymaker at this moment. It's a single hot lane for 9 miles, a little different than the dual express toll lanes that we're looking at I-405 that are expected to bring in some noticeable revenue. We have the 520 bridge. I mentioned that authorized, we have the I-405 express toll lanes that are currently under construction in the north end, the Columbia River crossing authorized, and the 99 tunnel, the board tunnel. And the ones that we're looking at, the I-90 bridge I just mentioned, 509 and 167. And then we're also looking a very preliminary along the I-5 corridor as well. So it's we're out there. It's a regional approach, which I-90 fits right in. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. As I mentioned, Craig Stone was going to be with you tonight. He's still on his way. He's Renton resident, by the way, and he's on his way up from Olympia. And I guess there was like a 9-mile backup headed up here today. But so we'll be doing also an in-depth briefing with your staff, and you're welcome to come to that as well.
Thank you, Colleen. Any questions from council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Corman.
Yeah, I think one of the areas of greatest interest probably for Renton, and this probably isn't a surprise for you, but would be the whether we'd incur too much additional traffic from I-90 getting
Right.
pulled. And I was wondering, Do you have any preliminary estimates, or would all of those come out of the environmental review?
That's right. That they're going to come out of the
Okay.
environmental assessment as part of our traffic review, and that's definitely on our radar.
Okay,
Yeah,
and so
understand.
that would be the second part of my question, is just to make sure that that's covered well. I think
Absolutely.
Highway 900 would pick up a lot of new traffic and all through our downtown, so we'd just like to know
Potentially,
about that.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another reason I might, encourage someone to participate in that executive advisory group, or at least have a staff person assigned perhaps to help to follow that, but we'll keep you updated as well.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Colin, on one of your slides, if you could go back, it was one of the earlier slides where it showed the percentages of increases and decreases in terms of traffic impact from 520, right there.
Yes.
Is the additional increases from I-90, 520 to I-5 and 405, is that coming from the tolling of the 520?
Right. So these are changes in traffic that we've seen since we started tolling 520 a year ago.
Okay.
So we've been monitoring it, doing updates to these numbers every month, and we'll continue doing that.
Okay, so as Randy mentioned, there is a belief that tolling I-90 would have some impact on Renton, South 405 and 167 corridor.
Right, and we definitely want to monitor that, and it will be studied in depth as part of the environmental assessment in the traffic discipline report, and we'll make sure to keep you updated however best. We've been in touch with your staff, and kind of a staff to staff will engage with you all.
Any other questions from council?
I've already put mine in at ETP, so
Yes.
I won't repeat them tonight.
All right, well, thank
Thanks.
you very much,
Thank you.
Colleen. We
All right.
appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, the administrative report, Mr. Covington.
Mr. Mayor and Council, two items wanted to just make you and the public aware of, both related to our neighborhood program. The first is an announcement that our neighborhood grant project program for 2013 is underway. The grants are available to organized neighborhood associations with defined boundaries in the city of Renton that have been officially recognized by the city. Eligible projects include physical improvements that build or enhance a feature of the neighborhood or benefit the general public. The grants range in size from $3,000 to $5,000 per project. The actual amount is based on the project's merit as determined by the council based on the recommendation of a staff-level interdepartmental team. Applications are due by 5 p.m. Friday, March 8th, and are available at the city's website, or on the city's website, or that's rentonwa.gov. We'll announce awards in May. The second item is an announcement that our neighborhood program will host the 9th annual Neighbor to Neighbor Forum this Saturday, February 9th, from 8 to 11:30 a.m. at the Senior Center. That's located at 211 Burnett Avenue North. Anyone who's interested in their community is certainly welcome. You don't need to be an official officer of a neighborhood association to attend. And if people have any questions, or to RSVP, they can contact Norma McWiller at 425-430-6595, or contact Norma at our website, rentonwa.gov. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. Next is audience comment. We have a couple people signed up to address the council. When I call your name, please come to the podium, give your name and city of residence for the record, and you have 5 minutes. Judy Tabak.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Law, Renton councilors, all of you in our city government. I'm Judy Tabak, Renton resident. First, I want to say what a pleasure it was to meet up with you, Mayor Law and Jay Covington, at Representative Adam Smith's open house last week at the opening of his office in Renton at the Evergreen Building. That was a pleasure. I was also delighted when I had a chance to speak with Councilor Ed Prince, and the very first time I've had a chance to do that. I addressed the fluoride issue with you, Counselor, and you stated that you wanted an unbiased opinion on the matter. I recommend that in addition to the book, The Case Against Fluoride, which I brought last week, you can see these very same expert people who were in the book on a video. Just go to Fluoride Action Network -TV video and the presentation and watch it. You'll see Arvid Carlson, Nobel laureate that I mentioned last week. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine or Physiology in the year 2000. Dr. Paul Connett, also the author of this book, with words from his own lips. I hope you'll watch it. It's very informative. It's stronger than reading it, in a book. They're both valuable. I have a few cities to tell you about that have stopped adding fluoride to their water supply. Santa Fe, a city of 70,000 residents, stopped the practice in July of 2012 by a vote of the council after having added fluoride to their water supply since 1955. Councilor Chris Calvert said, "What is happening is you are fluoridating 100% of the water, and anywhere from 95 to 90% does not get ingested, so you're basically dumping most of it into the environment." He said also that he had done graduate work research on fluoride, and that the city should give the $32,000 it currently spends to local dental clinics serving low-income people. Also, Albuquerque, a city of 500,000 people, has ended the practice of adding fluorides after 60 years of this practice. Wichita Falls, Kansas, by a vote of the people, voted out the practice by 59% no to 40% yes. Dorian Yates, a 6-time Mr. Olympia champion, has come out against fluoride, and I hope there are more in the sports field who will do the same. He's questioning the practice of adding fluoride to the water. And remember, the city of Renton's motto is ahead of the curve. I think you could say that taking the bold move of taking a vote on the city council on reversing the practice of adding fluoride to our water would truly show that Renton is ahead of the curve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot one thing. I brought my toothpaste. Now this is Colgate and with fluoride, and it has a warning on it. Keep out of reach of children under 6 years of age. If more than used for brushing is, and this is the way I'm reading it exactly as it says, is accidentally swallowed, get medical help or contact a poison control center right away. So this is what I bought, and I bought it at Minkler's Green Earth. So I'm patronizing a local business. Besides, no fluoride, and it's flavored with xylitol, which is supposed to attack bacteria in your teeth, so prevents fluoride also. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Judy, what brand of toothpaste is that you just, the first one
This
that
is
you
Tom's of
read?
Maine.
Okay, and the first one that you read?
This is Colgate.
Ah, is that just the regular Colgate whitener brand?
Colgate with fluoride.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Mark Martinez.
Good evening, Council. Mark Martinez. I live up in the Renton Highlands. We want to talk two issues, one very near and dear to my heart. My daughter, well, both near and dear to me, but one more so than the other. My daughter goes to Hazen High School, and those of you know Duval, right by Hazen, over by Albertsons, it's the 4-lane road with the center turn, so it's 5 lanes, and that there's a school crossing over there, and no stoplight. It's the blinking lights in the road when the kid hits the crosswalk sign, and for fear of sounding all old-fashioned, right? So you're driving at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. All the kids are wearing black and all of the clothes that they wear. It is very hard to see them, especially when you you know, if you're like me, you're constantly thinking that some kid at any point in time can jump out in the middle of the road, but other people oftentimes drives to work with a cup of coffee in their hand or the phone up to their ear or whatever. So it's very, very hard to see kids over there crossing at that particular crosswalk. And I think my wife emailed Marcy the specifics of the cross streets and everything, so she has the specifics on that. But it's just very hard to see kids crossing at that particular point. And I know it's disruptive to put in a traffic light, and it's costly to put in a traffic light, but I can guarantee you it would be far less disruptive for drivers than it would be for the family if a child ever got struck and was injured. So I would ask that the city look into maybe putting in a light at that particular spot. Second, I was asked to give an accountant's view on this fluoride in the water, and some of the people did the public request for information. They found that the city spends about $30,000 directly on purchasing the fluoride. There is undoubtedly secondary cost at the treatment plant, and some training that the employees have to undoubtedly go every year or two. So the cost is, I would say, just rough estimate about what I know about how costs work, about twice the cost. So about $60,000 would be a rough estimate of the amount that the city spends on this. And everything the city does is a choice, one thing over the next. Now, I know the city has had some issues with it recently with firemen and police retiring and not backfilling those because of costs. $60,000 isn't a full cost of hiring a new fireman or the full cost of hiring a new police officer, but it definitely gets you close. And so all of the medical things and the Nobel laureate people say all the things about the medical aspects of it. The cost part of it, the direct cost that the city has to pay for it, is a choice from one thing over the next. And in this case, I would prefer to have, as many of you know, about 2 months ago there was a shooting in my neighborhood. I would prefer the extra cop than a little bit of extra fluoride that may or may not protect people's teeth. Thank you.
Next is Audrey Adams.
Hi, good evening. It's Audrey Adams. I live in Renton, happily. As you know, I've submitted 2 requests so far for asking you to please test the product that you're getting from Shanghai. That's what it says on the certificate of analysis that you gave me on the public information request, and you've denied that request twice. And I pointed out last week that it actually says on the MSDS sheet that you gave me that recommends that you should test it, that you're responsible for verifying that product. And of course I gave you copies of what you gave me, gave back to you. And then I also of course had requested that if the city didn't want to do that, that I'd be happy to do that. You give it to me in a sealed package, I'll take it. I'll pay for it. I want to know what's in that product, and I think you want to know too. And I think for you to say no to all of my requests there indicates to the public that either you don't want to know or you don't want the public to know. So I really think that that's an important piece. So my request is still outstanding, even though I've been told no, no, and no. Anyway, I also got, under my request, digital photographs of the empty sodium fluoride bag. And on that, it says, under the warnings, on the bag, the container, which is, like an aspirin container, only it's 50 pounds, it says, warning, harmful if swallowed. Do not get in eyes. Don't get on the skin or the clothing. That doesn't exactly sound like something I want to bathe my baby in. Well, I don't have one. How about my grandchild when they come? It also says really boldly, for industrial use only. I don't know about you, but I don't think our children are industrial use consumers. Enough of that. On to my next subject. I really appreciate last week that you had Renton Heart Month. This is a very near and dear topic to me. In October, I went on vacation the first time in, I don't know, about 2 decades to visit a brother in Ohio and his wife and a brother in Pennsylvania. On my second day, not even 24 hours into it, my sister-in-law, as we were getting ready to go to the Amish country, died instantly. She had never been diagnosed with heart disease. 9 days later, I'm at my other brother's house in Pennsylvania, and he starts having chest pains. The result? A triple heart bypass. Near death, didn't die, thank God. He also never had been diagnosed with heart disease. So this was real interesting to me because I've not been diagnosed with heart disease either, but yet I could die tomorrow from it. So I wanted to know what was going on. One thing that was very unique about my brother, he's my biological brother, is that they couldn't do the typical angioplasty because he had calcified plaque in his arteries. So I wanted to know more about that calcified plaque and where it comes from. So I know I only have 5 minutes, so I'll kind of fast forward here a bit. Both my brother and my sister-in-law have been on fluoridated water for 30 years plus. And so, of course, being that that's where my head's at all the time these days, I started doing Googling with, you know, those words together. And it's pretty amazing what you can find. And I'm going to pass along some of the information that I found. And one of them is a fascinating article and review of the research on cardiovascular disease in Ireland. I'll send it to you electronically. I'll also give you this paper copy. It's pretty in-depth. Another one, groundbreaking research done a year ago. This is only one sheet, so it's the abstract summary of research that was published in the Nuclear Medicine Communications. And I'll just read a couple of things on here. It says, the purpose of the study was to assess fluoride uptake of vascular calcification in various major arteries, including coronary arteries. Skip on down. Significant correlation between fluoride uptake and calcification was observed in most of the arterial walls. And in their conclusion, again, I'm skipping a lot, an increased fluoride uptake in coronary arteries may be associated with an increased cardiovascular risk. This is really groundbreaking information. I see my lights on, and there's more. I do want to point out that there are, just in this documentation alone, somewhere around 200 references, scientific references. Please tell me where the references are that prove to me, that rebut this, that prove to me that it's safe. Safe for your heart and mind and everything else. Thank you.
Next is Jeannie Green Crook.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Green Crook. I live here in Renton. I'm here in support of Audrey. She's enlightened me a lot into the fluoride and issues that are around here that I had no idea how much it affected your health. But I just wanted you to know that I have 13 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild, and 3 of them live here in Renton. They're 3, 6, and 8. And I'm concerned as to the labels on the toothpaste and the mouthwash and the baby formulas, because the baby formula that's being made for our grandbabies is made with the fluoridated water, and it should not be ingested by them. So I'm very concerned at that. And as to my own health, I have thyroid issues, and it affects the thyroid, and that affects your skin and your tissues and your other organs also. So I would like to have my concerns heard here and take note that I really would prefer to have the fluoride taken out of our water system, and that we would be able to make that choice. If we wanted fluoride in our systems or for our teeth, we can go and purchase it, and that would be up to each person to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Council, we have 5 items on the consent agenda for your consideration. Is there any item a council member would like pulled for discussion? Mr. President?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Corman, second by Ms. Breyer, that council concur with the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to unfinished business, Mr. Corman.
And no unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Zwicker.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Breyer.
Yes, the Finance Committee has 2 reports.
Finance Committee report, approval of claims and payroll vouchers. The Finance Committee approves for payment on February 4th, 2013, claim vouchers 318354 through 318697, 3 wire transfers and 1 payroll run with benefit withholding payments totaling $5,716,531.17, and payroll vouchers include 717 direct deposits and 94 payroll checks totaling $1,587,759.44. This is signed by the 3 committee members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms.
I
Breyer.
move that council concur with the Finance Committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Breyer, seconded by Mr. Person, that council concur with the Finance Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Finance Committee report, utility bill adjustment, the Rockwood Fired Pizza. The Finance Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to grant the waiver requested for water, sewer, and King County Metro-related charges from a mainline water leak at the Rockwood Fired Pizza at the service address of 830 North 10th Street in the total amount of $7,180.40. The adjustment includes city water, $1,209.49, city sewer, $2,166.37, and King County Metro, $3,804.54, charges above their normal usage. This is signed by the 3 committee members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Breyer.
move that council concur with the Finance Committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Breyer, seconded by Mr. Person, that council concur with the Finance Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Mr. Prince.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Person.
No unfinished business.
Okay, Ms. Palmer.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
So, we don't have any resolutions or ordinances, so we'll move on to new business. Mr. Corman.
Okay, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I guess I just have one announcement. Well, I have 2 announcements, actually. First, we will have an executive session after the council meeting tonight. It'll last approximately 20 minutes, and it involves labor negotiations. And then, secondly, I want to announce that February 11th, next week, we will hold a committee of the whole meeting from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock here in the council chambers, and we have one item on that agenda, an exciting one, Renton Accessible Playground presentation. I know that's coming along nicely.
Yeah, did you want to add emerging issues so Mr. Taylor could
Oh,
update the
yeah, thank
regional?
you. Thank you for that. Yes, and we'll also add a second item to that committee of the whole presentation, kind of a carryover from tonight that we couldn't quite get to, emerging issues.
Okay,
And that is all.
thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes, the Community Services Committee meeting scheduled for February the 11th will be canceled. That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Zwicker.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Breyer.
Yes, the Finance Committee will meet on Monday, February 11th, from 5:30 to 6 p.m. We have 2 items: conversion of business analysis position and extension of limited term GIS analyst position. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Prince.
Yes, the Utilities Committee for February 11th has been canceled.
Okay. And Mr. Person.
No new business.
Okay, Ms. Palmer.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. thank you. So, next is audience comment. If there was somebody who didn't get a chance to address the council that would like to, yes, please come forward.
Go ahead. We'll go second.
Hi, my name is Diane Poholke. That's spelled P as in Paul, Aholke. Do you need my address too?
Just the city of residence.
Oh, I live in the city of Renton in the Liberty Ridge subdivision. And the reason I'm here is because I want to talk about the corner of Edmonds Avenue Southeast and Northeast 4th. In the summertime, there's accidents on that corner. And it happened several times last summer, and I almost caused an accident on that corner. If you remember, in December we had a few sunny days, and it was early in the morning, and it's caused by cars that are heading east up 3rd Street. What happens is that sun's hitting you right in the eye, and even with the sun visor and sunglasses on, you can't see the colors of the lights on that corner. If you're headed from like downtown Renton up into the Highlands, so you're headed east on 4th Street going up the hill, you know, you go underneath the freeway there by the Burger King and you're heading up. And, you know, I thought that was weird in the summertime that we had so many accidents on that corner by people going up the hill, until I had to take one of the kids to the bus stop early one morning, and I realized I ran the light too because I couldn't see it. The sun hits you just right there for about 15 minutes. And I walked down and have checked it on a few Sunday mornings. I don't know what the solution is because the light is enlarged, you know, and they have the blacking behind it and stuff. But I don't know what the solution is, but I just wanted to let people know that that is the reason why, you know, in the summertime we have accidents by people going up the hill on that corner.
Well, I appreciate that, Diana. I see Greg Zimmerman taking notes, so we'll have our traffic engineers take a look at that and see if there's something we can do to help alleviate that.
Right. And I'm sorry to the people that honk their horns real loud at me. I didn't mean to.
All right, thank you.
And then I have one other issue too. It's Perimeter Road around the airport on a real nice sunny Saturday morning. You know, I know it's a bicycle path, but you'd think it was the Tour de France out there. You know, they pass your cars going, and my customers come in and they're like, oh my gosh, the bicyclists. Is there any way that, you know, on a busy bicycle day we could get a police officer to kind of stroll through there to keep everybody at the speed limit? Because I go 25 and they're passing me like I'm going backwards. They do figure 8s around my fuel trucks. So I don't know how to fix that problem.
Okay, so we'll pass your comment there along to the police department for them to take a look.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Martinez. I live up in the Renton Highlands. You guys mentioned all these things that are coming up, and I completely forgot to let you know one of the main reasons why I came. A while back, I had my Cub Scout pack come do the flag ceremony, and this Saturday, the 9th, we're having our annual Pinewood Derby race at Honeydew Elementary from 10 to 3 o'clock. It's a potluck, so feel free to come. You get to see all the boys, all the cars that they made, and see them race. We've got a really nice 38-foot-long track. It's got a digital laser finish line, goes out to the 3 decimal points, and the last 2 years we've done it, we needed all 3 decimal points to figure out who was the winner. And we also have an outlaw race for anybody who's not a scout. So if you want to make your own Pinewood Derby car and come and race, just has to be from the Boy Scout box. So you can go down to the Scout shop or wherever and buy your own Derby car and race. And I made a car, and I'll have lunch for one of you who comes and beats me at the Pinewood Derby car.
All right, thanks. Thanks.
On a winter car.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Maybe we can get some of those cyclists from Perimeter Road to enter in your race there.
Mr. Corman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move that the council meeting recess into executive session for approximately 20 minutes to discuss labor negotiations with no official action to be taken, and that the council meeting be adjourned when the executive session is adjourned.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Corman, seconded by Ms. Breyer, that we recess into executive session for about 20 minutes for labor negotiations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in recess.